me connect to YouTube. So if it connects to YouTube, we're just going to try this, and hopefully at the very least, we'll get a good recording, and then we can upload if there's a problem with the live feed. So I don't know what's going on. Again, that was weird. I hit start streaming, and 5 minutes later, nothing was showing up on the Sermon Audio platform. So I'm going to go over here really quick to webcast. There's one other person currently broadcasting. He's been broadcasting for 42 minutes. How do we sound? Maybe. Uh-oh. Hang on. Maybe. Hang on. Now I don't hear us. Audio platform. So I'm going to go over here really quick to... yeah. Things are still not working really... Things are not working out smooth, but that's okay. Well, I'm going to hope everything works. Again, if anything happens during the live stream and you're not able to hear me, just remember I am recording on a separate software, so it will be uploaded soon after the broadcast. I'm hoping nothing happens. Sermon Audio must be having some kind of problem. Again, I hit start streaming and it took 5 minutes to even show up. And even now when I go to the webcast tab and hit play, it takes a minute for it to connect. So they may be having some kind of problem. Everything on my end is working fine. My internet's working fine. There's not a thing going wrong on this side. So I hope whatever the problem is fine. I'm going to go to YouTube really quick. I'm going to check out our live stream from there, Theology Central. Go over to YouTube. There we are. Hang on. I'm going to start the live stream. There's not a... Oh, that... YouTube is working great. All right, that's good. Turn off the live chat. All right, so we're off to a rocky start, but hopefully we can make this work. All right, someone from Nebraska is listening, my old stomping grounds. So I hope things are going well in Nebraska today. And of course, the country of Texas is showing up in the analytics. So that's good. No Canadians, because it's way too early for the Canadians to start listening to me. They only listen to broadcasts when I'm broadcasting after midnight. All right. So I think we're good. I think we're going to do this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this won't be the most popular. Well, actually, it may be the most popular. All right. We'll talk about all of that in just a second. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen, we go live officially in 5, 4, 3, 2. Here we go. 1.
Looking at our world from a theological perspective, this is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, May the 21st, 2026. It is currently 3:44 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. Now, I know it's Thursday, May the 21st. Now, here in the Abilene, Texas area, at about noon today, all the kids, all the schools, the kids are out for the summer, right? It's summertime. It's the beginning. It's Memorial Day weekend. Summer is here. Kids are running around screaming and having a great time. It's that time of year. It's wonderful. Some of you may be planning to travel this weekend. Maybe you're going to fire up the grill. Maybe you're going to be opening the pool. I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, some of you live in some weird communist state where, I don't know, probably still snow on the ground, or I don't know, your kids don't get out of school till August the 1st and they have to go back on August the 2nd. Okay, for the rest of us normal people, it's the official kickoff to summer. And well, I could be turning on the microphone. We could talk about a lot of things, right? We could start a new series on the song of the summer like we did last year, and I could be reviewing and analyzing and critiquing all the songs that are on the pop charts, and we could start making our prediction what's going to be the song of the summer. We could do that. Oh, we could do some movie marathons, and I could analyze and critique some movies. That could be fun. Who knows? We could try a lot of different things. But sad to say, we're not going to be kicking any of those things off right now. Maybe I just will decide to at midnight tonight. I don't know. Unfortunately, we have to talk about something that's not going to be very pleasant. Something that's not very comfortable. And I think many people would probably prefer that I choose something easier, something safer, something less awkward, something less personal, less exposing, something will be a little bit more fun, or something maybe even a little bit more interesting. But sometimes it is the subject that makes us the most uncomfortable, that is sometimes the precise one that demands an honest discussion. Look, the one thing I can say about this podcast, whether you hate it, whether you love it, is that when I turn on the microphone, I don't care about having, I'm not going to use Christianese. I'm not going to give you the church talk. I don't like Christian cliches. I like to burn all of that to the ground and have real open conversations and discussions, and sometimes talk about theological issues that nobody in the church wants to even admit even exist. So I believe that sometimes my honest discussions can be somewhat beneficial, at least from this perspective. It allows you to hear something different than you're typically going to hear on most Christian podcasts. So that's what I'm going to try to offer, an honest discussion, an honest talk about something that is very uncomfortable and nobody likes to discuss and nobody really wants to talk about, all right? Because here is the reality. There are countless Christians right now at this very moment, Thursday, May the 21st, 2026, getting ready to kick off Memorial Day weekend. And ladies and gentlemen, they are struggling with something they desperately, desperately do not want to talk about. They're dealing with something hidden. They're dealing with something they like to keep very, very private. They're dealing with something, struggling with something that is wrapped in secrecy, shame, guilt, fear, and isolation. And for some weird reason, this particular thing, unlike many struggles discussed in church life, this one is not something someone usually raises during fellowship time. This is not something like in Sunday school, like, hey, everyone pray for me. I'm having this problem. It's not something that gets discussed because this one is filled with shame and guilt and isolation. And this one will turn into, well, who knows? You may get in actual trouble. It's weird. In church, there are many sins you can talk about struggling with. Oh, I'm struggling with bitterness or unforgiveness, or I'm struggling with pride. And people are like, I'll pray for you, brother. Oh, I hear you, sister. I understand. Well, praise God. And yeah, God's going to help you. And all just the typical church talk. But then there are some sins, if you mention, people will be like, oh my goodness. And then possibly you're going to end up in front of the entire church getting excommunicated. Some sins are socially acceptable within Christianity, and other sins, oh, no. We don't talk about those. You see, no one in most churches is going to stand up during Sunday school and say, hey, everyone, I've got a porn problem. Hey, last night was Saturday and I was up till 4 a.m. looking at porn. In fact, I just spent $500 on OnlyFans this week. I spent $800 on this website or this website. No. You're not. Shut up. Shh. Or now you can say, I've been struggling with some pride. I've been struggling with some unforgiveness. I haven't been reading my Bible much. I haven't been praying enough. I've been struggling with this, and almost you'll be almost celebrated. How godly, how humble. But other sins, especially when it comes to the sexual kind, the pornographic kind, the lust kind. Shh. I mean, nobody's going to stand up in Sunday school going, hey guys, I not only do I have a porn problem, I look at porn about same-sex attraction. I look at gay porn. No. Shh. No. We don't talk about that here because nobody here has that problem, right? See, most people don't bring this up in small groups. Most openly don't discuss this and, after the service. Many are never even going to tell their pastor. Many are never even going to tell their spouse. Many are never going to even tell their closest Christian friend, because you never know if your closest Christian friend is going to get on the phone or online and tell someone else. And so you're like, no, I'm just going to deal with this in private, in secret. And this particular sin, I think we can be honest with this, pornography, sexual sin, it carries a unique sense of exposure. I think we can all agree with that. Embarrassment, fear, humiliation, the fear of what people will think, not just the fear of being judged, you're going to be judged. And especially if you're in ministry, no. You will lose your ministerial position most likely. Now you can stand behind the pulpit and confess that unforgiveness, bitterness, pride, you can confess a lot, and people are like, praise God, so humble. But if the pastor was to tell everyone about their porn problem, they're probably gone. Obviously, this one could destroy a relationship, destroy a marriage. This one just carries so many consequences of talking about it that it just leads it to be then dealt with within the dark, within secrecy. And come on, if the complete internet history of countless Christians could suddenly be displayed publicly, every search, every website, every late night click, every private moment, every hidden pattern, many people would be absolutely horrified, terrified, and ashamed. Because it would expose a reality that is, I think people know it more than they want to admit it, but we try to bury it beneath the church. We bury it beneath our church attendance. We bury it beneath our ministerial activity. We bury it beneath our Bible studies. We bury it beneath our worship services. We bury it beneath our Christian language. We bury it between our carefully managed appearances. We hide it. We may even hide it under our righteous indignation. Oh, I hate this sin. I hate it. I hate it. And sometimes all of that hate says, you doth protest a little too much. Maybe your hatred and your external loathing of it is because of your internal struggle with it. So that's the reality we're going to begin to talk about today. We're just going to begin. I've worked on this for a while. This all started, I'm not going to give away what happened, but I was looking at a Christian website and they just posted an article within the last, 48, 72 hours. And when I saw it, I was like, well, that's got Theology Central written all over it, so we're going to have to talk about it. So then at first I was just going to turn on the microphone and go, hey guys, here's the website, here's the article, go look at it, and then just make some quick observations and move on. I could probably do it in 30 minutes. But then as soon as I started thinking about it, I'm like, well, this, and then this, and then this. And then next thing you know, I have one idea, two ideas. I have then like this, then they start breaking them down into segments, 1, 2, 4. And then next thing you got about like 20 segments. And I'm like, this is going to turn into an 18-hour long podcast. So the next thing you know, I start turning it into a series, and then I start creating artwork. And so now this is just going to be kind of an ongoing discussion. I don't know where the beginning and where, I know this is the beginning. I don't know where the end is going to be, but we'll just see where it ends up. And I have a strong, I can make a pretty strong prediction. There's going to be a lot of attention given to it. And I've got history with that, and I'll explain that in a minute. All right. So we're going to talk about, obviously you're already getting an idea. We're going to talk about pornography. We're going to talk about sexual sin. We're going to talk about sexual temptation. We're going to talk about how Christians struggle, people in the church struggle, pastors struggle. It's a hidden struggle. And it's not because I enjoy discussing this topic, because I don't. It's not because shock value is the goal, because obviously it isn't. I could do episodes every day with shock value if I wanted to. I'm doing this because we can't pretend the subject does not exist. We can't. And we can't pretend that the church has been trying to offer solutions for basically 2,000 years, because they have. And I also think we need to talk about it because there's another layer to this that I think completely gets overlooked. And maybe for at least this episode, that's what we're going to talk about the most. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start at least right here, right now, which is dealing with the reality that nobody wants to admit. We're going to deal with the reality that nobody wants to admit, and that is pornography and the church. All right? Pornography is not a world problem. Now, the church loves to frame things as that's the world's problem. They struggle with that. They are wicked. They are ungodly. They are perverts. They are disgusting. But the church did a lot of they are the problem when it came to child molestation. Oh, that's a Catholic problem. Next thing you know, we find reports of it happening in this group and this group and this group and this group, and children are being molested in all kinds of churches. Just read the Roy's report on a normal day. You get child pornography, you get child molestation, all these things, and she reports on what's happening inside churches, and there's not a denomination that is spared. But the church loves to say it's their problem. Where pornography is not the world's problem. It's not that garbage they show on HBO. We always want to put it out there. No, it is a church problem. And the reason it's a church problem is because the church is made up of sinners, no matter how much we want to pretend that's not the case. Everyone sitting in a pew, everyone standing behind a pulpit, and those of us who sit in front of a microphone and do podcasting, we are sinners. So it's a church problem. It's a Christian problem. It's a pastor problem. It's a discipleship problem. It's a deacon problem. It's an elder problem. And the numbers are absolutely uncomfortable. Not rumors, not anecdotes, not isolated scandals. Research over multiple years keeps pointing in the same direction. And I'm just going to go through a number of this. According to Barna Group and Pure Desire Ministries, found that 54% of practicing Christians, these are the ones who will report viewing pornography at least occasionally. Now, that's just those who will admit it. And that's over 50%. That means more than a half of people who will actually admit it, who identify as actively practicing Christians. These are only people who identify as actively practicing Christians. They admit over 50% some level of porn use. Now, that's the ones who will admit it. And this is one of those subjects that not everyone's going to admit. Because you're like, well, if I admit this, who's going to possibly find out? I'm risking because of all the possibly unintended consequences. You admit this problem, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen to your relationship? Who knows what's going to happen to you in ministry? Who knows? So you can already see that the numbers are going to be lower than probably what the reality is. When you break them down further, the numbers become even more striking. 75% of Christian men report some level of pornography consumption. 75%. That is of those who will report it or acknowledge it. 75%. That's absolutely staggering. Just look at your church, look at all the men. Yeah, may not be what you want to admit. 40%, now that's still a lot, but 40% of Christian women report some use of pornography. I want you to think about that. According to some studies, you have 3 out of 4 Christian men, 4 out of 10 Christian women who admit to porn use or to viewing it, watching it, looking at it, or using it, obviously, in a certain way. So, I know whenever you give these numbers, there's always... I'll always get some email. I don't believe these statistics. It's not that much. It's far less. The people reporting this have a vested interest to make the numbers higher. You can say that all day long. I know look, and all of my years have been broadcasting. I've been broadcasting forever, okay? And some capacity, sending out cassettes, Christian radio, podcasts, preaching. I have been broadcasting forever. And in all of my years of broadcasting, one thing that was common forever, especially when I had far more money, is I tried to give away books. I gave away, everything from the Christian and Complete Armor, the fundamentals, Bible dictionaries, Bible encyclopedias, you name it. We even made available to people a digital curriculum for Bible study exercises. I gave away so much. It was ridiculous how many things I have given away. And here's the craziest thing. Of all the things we've offered, all the things we've given away, and so much, the one thing that had the absolute greatest response, it's not even close. It wasn't systematic theology, wasn't a Bible dictionary, wasn't a Bible handbook, wasn't access to free Bible study curriculum. No. It was a PDF file about battling pornography and porn addiction. The number of emails I received asking for that resource was in the hundreds. I have asked people to email me answers to questions and this, and sometimes I've tried every trick in the book to get people to engage, people to respond, not to be a passive listener, but to be practically involved, not passive, but active. And sometimes I'm met with a resounding silence. Sometimes I'm like, hey guys, if you don't contact me in 5 minutes, I'm going to stop breathing. And I get no response. But I say, hey, if you're struggling with porn, if you're struggling with porn addiction, here's a free resource. Just email me and I will send it to you. I will not ever email you again. I won't say anything to you ever again. It's completely free. You can make it as anonymous. I don't need to know anything about you. You don't need to sign your name. Nothing. Just say, I want the resource. You don't even have to name the resource. I won't name the resource, and I'll just send you the PDF file. Keep it as anonymous and as private as I can make it. Boom. In most cases, before the episode even ended, I was already getting email requests. So don't tell me then, the problem is not that bad. Give me a break. If it wasn't that bad, I wouldn't get my inbox would not be filled with that. And in my Christian life, just there are times you'll get to know a Christian man. I can speak for the men. I can't speak for the women. You get to know a Christian man, and then you may perceive them to be very godly, biblically knowledgeable. And then a lot of times, if you get to know them and you start talking to them in a private situation, sometimes all of a sudden, guess what you find out? They're struggling with porn. Time and time again. There's very few times I have ever gotten to know a Christian man and you start talking about spiritual struggles that they do not acknowledge some struggle with pornography. It's very rare that it does not happen. And if it doesn't happen, there's almost a part of me going, I wonder when they're going to say so, because it's just the reality. It's just the reality. And let's just make this very clear. Let's put this right here on the table, whether people like it or not. And we may talk about this more moving forward, but we just got to be we got to be blunt here. We got to be honest here. clearly there's a problem with sexual sin, because if you go all the way back in your Bible and you start in Genesis, you have all kinds of sexual sin going. You got homosexuality showing up before, disco shows up on the scene, okay? Before the village people show up on the scene, you get homosexuality right there early on in Genesis. You get incest early on in Genesis. You get rape early on in Genesis. You get laws against bestiality. Now, come on. Why do you need a law for that? Why does there need to, hey, we have a problem here. We got to have people stop having intimacy with an animal. If there's a law for it, then there's a problem for it. You have all of this is happening before the internet. This is happening before there's a smartphone, before there's cable TV, before there's Playboy, before there's, all of this is happening. Why? Because whether you like it or not, human beings are sexual creatures. They have strong sexual desires. That need for intimacy is built into human beings. Some people may have a much stronger desire. Some people may have a lesser desire, but it is there. There's no getting around it. And because we are sinful human beings, that depravity impacts that desire. So some people's desire may show up in a heterosexual format. Some it may show up in a homosexual format. Because we are sinners, and it impacts everything we want and need. And guess what? It is a biological need. It is built into us. So sexual sin has been present before pornography showed up on the scene. It's not a fringe issue. It's a problem that doesn't stop at the front door of the church. It reaches through the door to the pew, all the way to the pulpit, inside the pastor's office, inside the deacon's meeting, inside the elders' meeting. It doesn't matter where Christians gather and what, it's going to show up. It's going to manifest itself. And a Barna report, and this was just in the last few years, 67% of pastors report having struggled with pornography at some point in their lives. 18% of pastors who are willing to admit that pornography was a current struggle. I believe that number is far greater than 18%. 86% of pastors believe pornography use is common among Christian pastors. Now note that 18% will admit that it's a current problem, but 86% of pastors believe it's common among Christian pastors. You know why 86% admit that it's a problem? Because they know. So think about this. The people preaching sermons on purity are not so pure. The people counseling others are struggling with what they're counseling about. The people teaching, here's the biblical solution for sexual purity, they're the ones that the solution is not working, and they're the ones that are struggling, and they're the ones that are having problems. And again, the issue is always hidden. Again, because sexual sin is treated differently than almost any other sin in the Bible. You can lie. I mean, what was the Mark Driscoll scandal, right? Well, he didn't commit a sexual sin. Yeah, he only got busted for plagiarism. Okay, but hey, that's okay. You can plagiarize. That's okay. You can get caught with lying, arrogance, greed. I'm not saying all of these are Mark Driscoll's issues. I'm just saying pastors throughout history, they've been caught in for this and this and this and this, and no problem. One sexual sin, the end. It's almost like, how dare a pastor have a sexual desire? Okay. Well, what about all the other sins? It gets treated and put in a different category. So therefore, what are you going to do?
It's not, Christianity then does not become the place where struggling sinners can struggle and find grace, mercy, and hopefully move forward. No, Christianity is where you can show up as a sinner, but once you make that profession of faith, there's some level now of you can't commit these sins, because if you do, it's going to become public scandal and you're going to be destroyed. So therefore, you have to hide it. And therefore, that's the enemy to anything ever getting accomplished. So most pastors, they're not going to report anything. They're going to live in secrecy. They're going to live in silence. They're going to live in isolation. And then they're going to live with a cycle of guilt and concealment. And anyone who spent time in church life, ministry, counseling, men's groups, accountability programs, online Christian forums, or simply listening carefully to what Christians are saying, they know this struggle is widespread. I mean, anyone who doesn't think it's widespread, I'm sorry, you're just lying to yourself. Maybe for you, if it's not your problem, man, congratulations. That's awesome. But don't think that and some people are just like, I don't know what the problem is. I just don't get it. I just don't understand. What's the issue? Well, congratulations. And you probably have some issue that I would look at you going, I don't know what your problem is. Get over it. But that's the thing. Everyone is built differently. But there's no question about it. This problem has been prevalent, and it is widespread prevalent today. All right? There's no way to get around it. So this raises serious questions then. I think I can state it or ask it this way. Are the typical solutions, the typical formulas that Christianity offers, are they sufficient? Pray harder. Make a covenant with your eyes. Install accountability software. Walk in victory. Fully surrender to God. Read your Bible more. Memorize scripture. I mean, do those work? Because if they do, then why is the issue still so massive and being hidden inside churches all over this country? Maybe pornography is revealing something deeper than technology. Maybe it's revealing something deeper than a smartphone, deeper something than internet access, something deeper than broadband. Because guess what? No, all of these problems with sexual sin, they started way before smartphones, internet, broadband, Wi-Fi. Human sexual desire, human fantasy, human sexual obsession, lust, internal corruption, and sexual struggle has existed since the fall. If human depravity is true, which I 1000% believe it is, then sinful desires do not arise because of that which is external. They arise from that which is internal. And when it comes to a sexual sin, it becomes even more complicated. Why? Because sexual sin is a natural desire. So you're taking a natural desire. I will go so far as a natural need. Intimacy is a psychological and biological need. Then you add in sinful nature. You got problems right here in River City. If Christians still possess these ongoing sinful inclinations and desires, which we do, then what exactly are we claiming when we supposedly present, here's the solution? Are we claiming people can have complete victory? Are we claiming that we can just have a little bit better behavioral management? Can we say we can just reduce temptation by following certain steps? Are we simply presenting an ideal that no one ever fully is going to achieve? But I know this. The church, deep down, They may not want to admit this, but the church deep down, they know there's a problem. They do know it. I mean, 86% of pastors acknowledge that even it's a problem amongst pastors. So in one sense, the church will admit it. That's why you get churches and pastors and authors and counselors and ministries and accountability programs and conferences and books and sermon series. They've been trying to find the answer to pornography and temptation for decades. That's why there's so many books. Here, fight it this way. Do this. Fight it this way. On YouTube, sometimes I'll get some ad from YouTube, some Christian ministry going, we've found a solution to the porn problem. Are you struggling? Well, listen to this or get this book. I've not followed through on the link to know what it does, but it's supposedly the solution of solutions. And I've been seeing these solutions forever. So the church knows it's a problem. The church has preached against it. The church has warned about it. The church has offered everything from filters, accountability partners, confession groups, purity pledges, purity rings, prayer strategies, daily disciplines, and victory language. And just recently, I stumbled upon another article providing another solution, and this time the solution supposedly comes from the book of Job. But before I even introduce that, before we even talk about it, and I don't even know how far we're going to get, we're going to talk about something that's going to make a lot of people mad. All right? But we have to talk about this. Because when I think about sexual sin, pornography, and I lived through the whole purity culture thing. I kissed dating goodbye and purity rings and all. I watched all of that come into the church, kind of go away. A lot of the criticisms that came about it, a lot of the damage that was done. We could have an entire discussion about all of that. One of the things I've noticed, and now I know this is going to be very theology central of me, all right? So if you know this podcast, you probably know what I'm getting ready to say. But there is something about everything the church has done about this problem that drives me to the point of wanting to start breaking things, all right? Because there is something about this entire discussion that I think should force all of us to ask a very difficult theological question. And I think, honestly, pornography exposes this problem, this tension that the church doesn't know exactly how to handle. All right? Just think about this, all right? Think carefully about how Christianity commonly talks about conversion and the Christian life. They will say something like this: become a Christian and you are transformed. You are a new creature. Old things are passed away. All things have become new. You are born again. You have been set free from the power of sin. The Holy Spirit is now within you, and He empowers you. He strengthens you. He will help you. He will assist you. God empowers you. God changes lives. God changes your desires. God breaks the chains. God gives you victory. God strengthens. God transforms. And you hear this language everywhere, from the pulpit and books and conferences and testimonies on Christian radio and counseling sessions and discipleship programs. Christianity constantly speaks in the language of transformation and power, and yet, watch what happens as soon as the subject of pornography shows up. Now, they still may throw out a little bit of that language, but you just look at once you start breaking down their solution, the conversation shifts. The emphasis now becomes overwhelmingly, I'll dare say, atheistic. It becomes overwhelmingly as if God no longer exists, because now it's like, guard your eyes. It's not about you've been transformed, you've been changed, your desires have been changed, so you won't look at porn, you won't desire porn, you won't even desire sex anymore. You're just going to be, all you're going to be doing is wanting to read your Bible and loving God. You're not even going to have a desire. You're going to be set free. No. All of a sudden it's like, whoa. You got to guard your eyes. You may need to get a filter. You may need to get rid of this app. You need to do this. You need an accountability partner. You need to put a rubber band on your hand, and when you get a sexual thought, you snap the rubber band, or you slap yourself, or you electric shock therapy. Who knows what? All of a sudden now, it becomes very, very practical. Guard your eyes. Monitor your thoughts. Install accountability software so that your friend will know when you're looking at porn and he can come knock on your door. Hey, Johnny, looks like you were up at 2 a.m. looking at some porn. Now. We don't do that now, do we? You're really bad. Now, if you keep doing this, we're going to have to talk to the church. Hey, use a filter so that your internet won't allow you to see the bad stuff. Hey, avoid any triggers. Now, okay, it's Memorial Day weekend. Summer is here, and what's going to happen. The women are going to start dressing in ways that's going to be a trigger. So, I don't know, Johnny, you may not want to go to the beach, and you may not want to go outside, and I don't know what you may want to do. You need to delete those apps. You can't be looking at the gram. Because you don't know what you're going to see. You know how those Instagram influencers be looking hot. Can't be doing that. You got to stay away from temptation. You got to create some barriers. Build the wall. Shut the door and don't let the devil in. Or shut the door and keep the devil out. However the song went. You need to build some disciplines. You need to develop some routines. You need to make covenants. You need to practice vigilance. You need to control the inputs. You need to watch what you consume. You need to be careful where you go. And immediately, the question should present itself. Wait, what happened to all of this transformation language? If I'm a new creature and old things are passed away, there shouldn't be any sexual temptation or lust. If God is empowering me, you think at the very least he could give me enough power not to lust, not to look at a woman with lust, not even to desire to check out a website, you think I should just be dun dun dun, no sexual sin. But guess what? All of a sudden, the new creation language is gone. All of a sudden, supernatural empowerment gives way to fleshly discipline and fleshly techniques that sound just like what you would get in secular counseling about how to overcome an addiction. So where did God changes your desires go? Where did the omnipotent God who empowers you and strengthens you go? Because if God is empowering, strengthening you, there would not be any sexual sin. Because you would have the power of God. So therefore you could just stop sinning. Where did the old is gone and everything becomes new? It's gone. Because, and again, if you listen carefully, discussions about pornography, they sound remarkably close to behavioral management systems that you could get in any self-help book. They give you addiction counseling strategies, environmental control, cognitive behavioral approaches, trigger reduction, routine restructuring, self-monitoring, barrier creation. Now, let me be very clear. I'm going to make this very clear. Observing the fact that these are just the basic techniques used, even in secular settings, even in an atheistic setting where you're trying to overcome a certain problem or a certain desire or a certain issue, I'm not saying that they're not genuinely helpful. I'm not. They may be helpful, and if they help you, great. If they keep you from the behavior, they keep you from hurting yourself, whatever, great. But don't then turn around and try to claim God intervenes and God helps and God empowers and God. Just stop it, because you're using the same fleshly techniques that everyone else uses. Because the reality is exposure matters, habits matter, inputs matter, patterns matter. But if Christianity strongly proclaims transformation, why does the solution becomes overwhelmingly centered on human effort, human discipline, human vigilance, human behavioral management, about self-regulation? Now, I know some Christians are like, no, but God is involved. God is involved. God is involved. Well, he may be involved, but he's kind of really sitting back just watching, going, oh, I sure hope they use these techniques. I sure hope they use these techniques. God is involved. It's very passive. It's not this power, transformation, change, dun, 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 dun. No, you're still a broken down sinner with sexual desires, and your sinful nature will tell you to satisfy those desires in countless different ways. Pornography forces difficult questions into the open. If Christians are truly transformed, then what do we mean by transformation? Because obviously we don't mean we're going to stop sinning. I mean, do you mean observable behavioral perfection? Clearly. Or do you talk about the elimination of temptation? Clearly not. The disappearance of disordered desire? Clearly not. A gradual struggle, improved restraint, better management of sinful impulses? Just a positional reality before God rather than practical moral perfection? What is being claimed when you say we're being transformed and we're being empowered and we've been set free, which is the never-ending language of the church? So on one hand, we're preaching it this way, but on the other hand, we're like, okay, hey, that's just how we sell Christianity. But over here in this room, wink, 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 we know the truth. We're going to have to really buckle down, guys. We're going to have to really do this. All right. We're going to have to really dig in because it's going to be a long battle and we're going to have to struggle. It's going to be like, but over there, you're telling everyone that God's going to change and God's going to transform and God's going to fix it. And even in many of the sermons that talk about this issue, at the beginning of the sermon, they go all in about God, 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 God. But then when it breaks down to the solution, it'll be like, okay, you need to do this and you don't do this and you do this and you don't do this and you don't do this and you don't do. Well, it's like, well, it doesn't sound like God's doing much of anything. Again, more than half of practicing Christians report porn use. 8% of Christian men, pastors admit it, leaders admit it, years of sermons, years of prayer, years of accountability programs, years of purity teaching, years of victory language, and the problem remains deeply embedded inside the Christian world. Pornography exposes something larger than pornography. It exposes unresolved questions. They should not be unresolved, but they are unresolved questions about human depravity, about what sanctification is and isn't, sinful desires, the flesh, and transformation. Because there is an uncomfortable relationship between theological claims and lived reality. And only some people want to acknowledge the lived reality. They want to live in their theological fantasy world, but lived reality tends to say your theological speech is just absolute nonsense and it's fantasy land because look at how people really live. And this probably explains why churches and ministries and counselors and authors and conferences and discipleship programs keep looking for practical solutions, because deep down, everyone knows the problem is real. They know it's persistent. They know it's complicated. They know it's internal. They know it's ancient. They know it existed long before smartphones, long before high-speed internet, long before social media algorithms. Human beings have wrestled with sexual temptation since the fall. Now, first, I'm going to give you an assignment. You have sermon audio right there. Have about 1 million sermons. Just start looking on sermon audio for sermons on pornography, sexual sin, temptation, Just listen to about 5 and just try to write down what is their solution. What is their solution? If their solution is just that God's going to change you, well, you're going to realize really quick, well, then something is wrong because God didn't just change me. So those sermons are going to get thrown to the side because that doesn't work. And if they give you 15 practical steps, then you're going to be asking, well, wait a minute. I thought God is all powerful and he empowers and he changes and he transforms. Well, then you're going to know all of those claims are not true. And then you're going to be like, so I'm just basically left with the same steps that I could be given if I went to an atheist and asked for help on how to overcome an addiction. The only problem is the atheist will say overcome an addiction, but they won't be acknowledging the reality of a sinful nature. And the reality of the sinful nature, all the techniques in the world will not change the sinful nature. So the best you can do is find techniques that stops you and manages your external actions to keep you from getting in trouble. But they're never going to change the fact that lust, fornication, adultery, homosexuality, and all of these other things arise from inside of you. The problem is not letting the devil in. The problem is the devil has been in since your conception, and it's called your sinful nature. You can build all the walls and shut the doors, lock them, push all the furniture against to keep the monster out, but the monster's going to tap you on the shoulder and go, boo, I've been right here the whole time, buddy. You're not getting away from me. I'm inside of you. So here's a little bit of lust. Here's a little bit of anger. Here's a little bit of unforgiveness. Oh, you can fight it all day long, but until that nature is eradicated, the poison is inside of you. You may treat the symptom, but you're not going to get rid of the disease because the disease is inside of you. There's no running away from it, baby. You're stuck with it. And God has chosen not to get rid of it. And if he did, then the problem could be fixed. The solution would be the eradication of the old nature. So if we can't eradicate the old nature, then guess what you're left with? Behavioral management modification. And why do you then want to modify the behavior? Because the external actions lead to pain, problem, scandal, and possible destruction of relationships. So we manage the external and then we pat ourselves on the back. Well, I haven't looked at anything today, but what's been going on inside of you? Because you don't have to look at something to have fantasies and desires. So then it's about just trying to stay out of trouble. Now that's fine. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying just acknowledge, okay, this is just about staying out of trouble. And this is about, because internally I'm a mess. So I want you to look up all the sermons you can find about pornography and just write down what is the solution they provide. And just ask yourself, is this like, do I have some supernatural spiritual solution? Or am I just reduced with basic fleshly techniques? And I think you're going to be basically left with fleshly techniques. Now, all of this, so that's the first thing. I want you to look up those sermons. The second thing I want you to do is I want you to look up a particular article. All right? Hang on, I'm opening up my iPad. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to wayoflife.org. 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 The first thing you're going to see is an article entitled, What the Roman Catholic Church Teaches About Salvation. All right? You can look at it, whatever. But you'll notice right underneath that, you'll see an article entitled, Job's Solution to the Pornographic Age. Job's solution to the pornographic age. And this is taken from a book called The Pornographic Age and Victory in Christ. Now, I would strongly recommend, if you can afford it, purchase the book. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with the book. I'm not saying I'm going to disagree with the book. I'm saying it's a book that, once again, represents at least some ministry trying to deal with this problem of what they call the pornographic age. I'm just saying whatever problem you're trying to fix of the pornographic age, you just need to acknowledge it's a problem that exists since the fall. Read Genesis. How in the world do you get homosexuality, incest, and rape going on, polygamy? You get all of this going on in Genesis. It didn't take 5 seconds for all these problems to show up. There wasn't rock and roll. There wasn't rap. There wasn't video games. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't OnlyFans. It was just there because it's inside. The problem is inside. And then why do you have to have laws against, again, like things like bestiality? Why? Because there's something wrong inside of us. But I want you to look at the article. It was published yesterday. Now, if you click on the article, you get this. And we're going to be talking, we're not going to be able to do this in this episode. This is kind of the introductory episode to all of this. We're going to look at this. Hang on, I'm trying to let my internet open this article. It's having technical difficulties in opening this article right now. Just give me a second. Hang on. Let me close this and see if I can get it to open. Hope I'm not having an internet problem then, because we're going to lose our live feed. Oh, here we go. Maybe. All right. Yeah, we're having some kind of technical problem here. But yeah, I want you to go to wayoflife.org. I want you to find the article, if I can get it to open. I know what I can do here. I can go to a different browser. Don't know why it's not working. Here we go. This is working. Maybe their site is down. Maybe I crashed the site. Maybe so many people are listening to me right now that the site has crashed while they're trying to, it's not opening. Everything else is showing up on my iPad. This one is just gone. But if you go to the article itself, again, I cannot read it for you, but if you'll go, you'll notice he's going to take Job chapter 31. Job chapter 31. I can at least read the text for you. Job chapter 31, verse 1, where we read, I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? All right. Now the website is opening. Hang on. That's about the book. Here we go. Now, Job's solution to the pornographic age. All right. So he's going to take that passage, Job 31:1, and he's going to then say, here's Job's solution to dealing with the pornographic age. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at the 9, how many things does he give here? 9 things. 9 things that supposedly we can take from Job 31:1 and we can implement. We need to know, and it will help us, at least in some way, shape, or form, give us victory over the pornographic age. We will be looking at all of them. I'm not going to go into them right now. We kind of got delayed there with the website not opening, but I want you to take a look at it. Again, I want you to consider even getting that book. But when you look at these solutions, a couple of things I want you to think about. First, is Job 31:1 even really there about giving us a solution to overcome the pornographic age and overcome sexual desire and sexual sin? Just remember what's going on. Job has been accused of, hey, the reason you're suffering is because you're a vile sinner. And Job tries to defend himself, and he makes lots and lots of statements. But just remember, it's not going to be long after this that Job is going to be confronted ultimately by God, because he's going to ask God a lot of questions. And then Job's finally going to say, you know what? I spoke and I didn't really know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not saying that this means everything Job says is false. I'm just saying, just remember, it's a man defending himself. That's what it is. I know we want to turn it into, oh no, this is the way to fix your problem. But let me just say, you can make a covenant with your eyes. And that may get you to not look upon a maid. Maybe it will get you not to do that. But man, if you think that's going to get rid of your sexual desire, and if you think that's going to stop you from having sensual thoughts and sensual lust, you're out of your mind. It may allow some behavioral modification, but I'm sorry, the reality, we know what's inside of us. But I want you to see if you can find 5 sermons on Sermon Audio about the subject. And I just want you to consider, do they offer, well, God's just going to fix the problem because he's going to transform you, change you? And do they acknowledge that? And if they say God is going to help you, strengthen you, and do that, then why doesn't God just fix the problem? Okay. Do they even acknowledge that? Or do they talk a big game about what God's going to do, but inevitably it turns into, don't do this, 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 don't do this. And if it does, can we then just admit that it just comes down to same old fleshly techniques used by any other system of trying to improve or change someone's behavior or to try to modify behavior? And if that's all that Christianity offers is the same earthly, fleshly techniques as given by everyone else, then let's stop all the transformation talk. And if we're going to talk all the transformation talk, there shouldn't even be a need about techniques or steps, because God transforms you, you wouldn't even have the problem. But you can't have the problem if you've been transformed. So if you have the problem, then you haven't been transformed. And if the solution to the problem is just techniques, then okay. You may throw in a little extra spiritual steps, and a secular, they may not say read your Bible. They may not say pray. They may not say memorize scripture. They just may give you other steps, but it's the same. Do these things, and supposedly you're going to fix it. But just think, Christians have been trying all of these things for 2,000 years. If I just go to the Roy's report right now, I don't know what I'm going to see. I haven't looked at it today. If I go to the Roy's report, I'll just go Roy's report. Here we go. What do I see here? Wheaton College traumatized and re-traumatized my family, says ex-wife of alleged predator. South Texas Assemblies of God facing financial disaster as another sex abuse lawsuit is filed. Christian school teacher who texted, "I love my girl," pleads guilty to seducing student. Okay, let's see here. It only takes a couple of seconds. Alan Chambers, former Exodus International leader, charged with soliciting minor. All right. There's an indictment in a high-profile Ohio sex abuse case. See here. I'm looking here. Hillsong founder Brian Houston denies sharing French porn on the platform X. All right. Man, I can just keep loading articles here. It just continues to go over and over. It's just so much stuff here that just happens. A worship leader's pastor's son tagged with alleged sex offense at Florida school and church. Oh, man, how many here? See here. See here. Oh, well, that I won't get into that. Here's another one. This is in Texas. A mentor from a certain ministry is sentenced to 30 years for sexually abusing boys. I mean, I can just go on and on and on and on. And that's just one site that reports all the sexual, they report a lot of things, but it just seems every day there's 5 articles about from child pornography, sexual abuse, child molestation, sexual sin, pornography, you name it. And it's just like it never stops. It never ends. Well, then if this transformation doesn't fix it. So I know what some of you say, well, these people aren't saved. These people aren't saved. These people aren't saved. These people aren't saved. Well, Lot's considered a righteous man in the Bible, and yet he committed incest with his daughters. David, man after God's own heart, committed. We can go on and on and on. They were polygamists. They were. Sin is going to show up. You can throw out go ahead, throw out everyone who commits a sexual sin and say they're not saved. One day you're going to wake up and look in the mirror and go, man, if people only knew what was on my internet history, if people only knew what was in my heart, if people knew what I was desiring, if people knew what I was thinking, and then you'll throw yourself out of the kingdom, and the only person to be left in the kingdom of God is Jesus. Now, I'm not excusing anybody's sin. What I'm saying is, I don't know if Job 31:1 is the solution, but it's another one being presented. So 5 sermons on sermon audio dealing with the problem, all right? And if you find a good one, or if you find a really bad one, by all means, send it to me. You can share it with me. And then you can look at the Job 31:1 solution there at wayoflife.org. Again, it was the second article down after the Catholic one. And you can look at those steps. And I just want you to ask yourself, when it comes down to it, and all of your Christian life and all the steps and how to keep people, away from sexual sin, what does it amount to? I mean, you could probably write out a list of what it amounts to. And it's all very basic fleshly stuff, which screams transformation is not the answer. Because if there was transformation, there would be no problem. Power is not the answer, because if God gave power, there would be no problem. So if all the techniques are these, then the best you can say is Christianity gives us the morality of not to do these things, but the solution to not doing those things is just human discipline and behavior. And then from a theological perspective, all you can say is the best we can do is try to stop certain external behavior so we can avoid scandal, pain, problems. However, we've got to acknowledge that in the heart, we are fornicators, adulterers, and we're filled with lust. Some of us more than others, but that's the reality. Now, once you present Christianity that way, it doesn't sound so dramatic and powerful as we preach it. And I think unless we can acknowledge that, there's no moving forward on the topic. So 5 sermons, look at the Job 31:1 solution, think about this kind of 2 options, the supernatural transformation route, which then would get rid of the problem, which it doesn't, so then that kind of causes it, or the very fleshly solutions, but then what does that ultimately say about Christianity? Now, if you're having major problems and struggling, by all means, use all the fleshly techniques you can come up with, because you know the behavior may ultimately destroy your life. I understand that. But just acknowledge you're just following behavioral modification. Now, it may be good, may make everyone happy, may avoid problems, but don't think for a second that changes your heart and changes the sin that's inside of you and somehow makes you now perfectly obedient to God's standard, which is perfection. All right. Well, this is not going to go over well, but that's okay. I know it raises a lot of very uncomfortable questions. I told you it was going to be an uncomfortable topic, and you knew I wasn't going to address it in the typical way, because the typical ways just don't make any sense. But next time, what we'll do, we'll look at Job 31:1, and we'll look at what it actually says and doesn't say, because we got to look at the text first. Then we'll look at how the text is being utilized in this article, and we'll examine each point. And then we'll just see where we go. We'll probably end up reviewing some sermons, and we'll see we'll just see how this kind of evolves. All right? How this kind of turns into whatever it's going to turn into. I originally wanted to get all the way from kind of the introduction to how bad the problem is to this problem with the transformation claim into Job 31:1. Cover the text, and I wanted to get a lot further, but here we are, 1 hour, and we didn't. So we'll just have to do another episode sometime soon. So we'll see. And I don't know what I'm going to do for Memorial Day weekend and the kickoff of the summer. I don't have any specific plans, but if I come up with some ideas, you'll hear them here first. So, download the Church One app and You'll get notified whenever I go live. All right. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. And don't forget your homework. 5 sermons. Look at the article. wayoflife.org, the Job solution. And you tell me what you think about that solution. All right. God bless.